or even building the reputation of your neighborhood or the country where you live. So let me give you some background behind some of my thinking. Now, last summer, and we were still in lockdown, of course, there was a conference in London that I attended with the Lord Mayor of London and our Mayor of London and Princess Dana Firaz. And we were discussing what the future looks like and what that means for businesses and creativity and what skills young people and professionals would need. And one of the things that we considered is just this. Is someone talking to me or are they talking to someone else? Okay,
Sorry
cool.
about that. Yeah, I've put them on mute. Everyone, if you can just, stay on mute till we finish the presentation would be great. Thank you.
It's all good, unless you've got a good voice and you can sing well and rap hard. so there were kind of three things that came out of this conference where we felt that new cross-disciplinary skills were needed and this mindset of networking, and that networks were dynamic and you had to think about the long-term benefits, but also public visibility was really important. And by that, what we mean is, how you are able to exist online on social media, how you're able to effectively perform, right? Because if you think about now with video calls, we're all being asked to do presentations and to have as polished skills as newsreaders and being able to take hold of things like talk show hosts. And I found this really interesting in such a way that we were asked to summarize our experiences. And I drew this picture because I thought to myself that in the real world, and I had a picture of a tree there, kind of makes sense, right? But when I think about online and I used a Wi-Fi symbol, it kind of looks like an upside down Christmas tree to me, which makes me think that they're similar, but at the same time, they're different, that we're turning things on their head. And so when I think about branding and education and doing business, I'm thinking about how those things work together and how we can turn things on their head. Now, one of the things, which is one of my pet complaints, I would say, is that often when you think about people studying business, sometimes there's a real risk that you get really ambitious, creative, live wire minds wanting to study and go out and do amazing things. And then you come and learn all of the rules and regulations and frameworks and structures according to textbooks as to how you should do business. And I kind of feel that there's a real risk sometimes that you take that spark and that passion out of students, right? And the real risk is that you become what I call a business school butler. And by that, what I mean is that you have great manners, impeccable manners. You know intricately the ins and outs of business, what to do and what not to do. But if you think about what a butler looks like, apart from being well-dressed and very polite and knowing all of the rules and manners to get them through an event, you're not invited to the party to party. You're invited to serve people at the party. So I want my students to think that whilst learning rules and manners and mannerisms are really important, I want to keep you at the center of the party, right? So that you get invited, right? And sometimes I'd actually go as far as saying that whilst you've learned the rules, some of the great businesses or the great brands or the great professionals actually know when to break rules. So let's look at some of those ways that we can learn how to break rules and not get in trouble, right? Now, one of the things that we can see is that the way that business professionals exist in the marketplace now is changing, because the chances are people are going to Google you, right? And you probably will get DM'd on whether that's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, WhatsApp if they get hold of your mobile number. But you could quite possibly get DM'd from a whole range of people. And by that, like, let me give
Hey, I think you're on mute. Can you
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Who's trying to mute me? The revolution will not be muted. So what I was saying is that even when I've been working with governments like Tajikistan in Russia or the Indonesian government, they would use WhatsApp so that we could have video calls, phone calls. Sometimes we'd send jokes and pass across documents. So I don't want you to think that the business world today is just about formal communication through written letters and email. It's simply not the case. So therefore, you can expect that people are going to check you out on social media. They are going to DM you and find the quickest, most effective way to get through to you, to get a response. And you probably, for your employer, whoever you work for, is going to expect you to post things on social media. Because if you've got that amazing following that makes people take notice, they are going to expect you to use that to support the company. So if that's the case, what's this thing that I've been talking about, which is branding, right? Now, in really simple terms, a brand tells a story, paints a picture, and makes a promise. And that's pretty much what a brand is. Now, of course, it's a logo. Of course, they have strap lines and names. If you think about Nike, Adidas, Tom Ford, Emirates Airlines, Chipotle, Subway, KFC, Nando's, all of these are brands, but also we can see that there are credible celebrities. If you think about the rise of people like whether that's J-Lo, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Kanye, and Kanye coming out with Yeezy trainers, or Dr. Dre coming out with Beats by Dre, or Cristiano Ronaldo. There are celebrities who have created themselves into having an image and an identity, which is very similar to a brand for a company or a product or a service. But what I'm also saying is that in the modern workplace, this is also applying to us now at our stage of career. You don't have to be a celebrity, but put it this way, if you're applying to get into university and you're the person that has an image and an identity, which is easy to find, easy for us to understand what it is that you're about and what you like to do, and there's evidence of you doing those things, whether you are looking to go to university or looking for your first job or looking for funding for a company that you're starting up, branding is going to help you because it helps you to tell that story and it paints a picture and you're starting that promise building approach. Now, to support branding, we also think about reputations, and reputations are basically built on keeping up promises. The promise that your brand makes, which is whether that's Gillette, the best that man can get, or Nike, just do it, or L'Oreal, because you're worth it, or Emirates Airlines, hello tomorrow, Carlsberg, probably the best beer in the world. We are going to fulfill that promise that the brand makes, and that is our reputation. So how do I put that into practice in the classroom, or what am I going to help you guys to understand? Definitely you're at the center of learning. And what I'm thinking about is that you would learn about branding and about content creation, whether that's on YouTube, Instagram, or more formal advertising. And you are engaging stakeholders who are not just staff at the university, but prospective employers, companies, the media, the wider community. But to me, that's what I call the magic triangle. Now, if you also think about you developing your skills, it requires innovative thinking, and that takes some time. So I think the university is a really important place where you can experiment and you can debate and you can share ideas. So I encourage that in my classrooms, and we debate all sorts of things, anything from Black Lives Matter to where would a good, which city is better to start up a business, whether that's Moscow or New York or London or Tokyo, whether that's the latest music video that's come out, like I was watching, was it Billie Eilish, and her filming a video on an iPhone and what that means for like kind of the music industry and the film industry, a bunch of stuff basically. But you need that space to have those discussions and to experiment and collaborate. So we do that, but also we want to develop a global mindset, because one of the things that I could say about Regents is You know, we have up to 140 different nationalities from all over the world. And that makes for a really interesting classroom discussion and dynamics, because if you've got people from Colombia, from Cameroon, from Japan, from Thailand, from Turkey, from Iraq, from Saudi Arabia, from United States of America, Ethiopia, then you can imagine the sorts of discussions that we have. And also, you can imagine how you could start to build real, meaningful friendships and global networks. Because if you did want to travel and see the world, or you did want to settle in another country, it's always easier when you've got hookups, right? So I think that Regents prides itself on being able to help people get a really kind of family-friendly orientated business network. So it's not just about making friends, but I would say making friends who are business connections. So it's making friends with a purpose. And I can see somebody's baby on the camera. How cute. Baby, give me a wave. So you just came into the screen. Now, let me give you a couple of examples of where I've worked on brands to kind of help me build up this experience. I mentioned that I've worked for the Indonesian government. And so I worked with the Ministry of Tourism, where they had these logos trying to get people to come to Indonesia on holiday. And if you didn't know, you've never been, Bali is one of those destinations in Indonesia, right? So they have this rainbow colored symbol, which is like a mythical creature called a Garuda. And Garuda Indonesia is their airline, which mirrors the same bird. And some of you may remember a few years ago, Garuda was sponsoring Liverpool Football Club, and this is the flag of Indonesia. So one of the things that I did was, and this was targeting people from the Muslim world, so from countries in the Middle East, and also to a certain extent, Western Europe, where you've got heavy Muslim minority population, was I created this logo working with a calligrapher. Oops, I just skipped past it. So this is actually Arabic calligraphy, and that I designed to resemble the shape of this mythical bird, this kind of phoenix type creature called the Garuda. And then the role was to tone that down a little bit and to have that in the colors to mirror the main bird. So we developed a specific promotional campaign targeting Muslim tourists, celebrating halal, which basically means food which is permissible for Muslims to eat, right? And that's kind of a good time to mention it, because we're already 1 week into the month of Ramadan. So also timeliness of having a particular campaign is really important, right? So I did that. Also, I mentioned that branding is really important to all of us, right? So if I share you a snapshot of like 2014, I created my own logo, and I decided to pick the colors peacock blue and cantaloupe kind of peachy color. There's a story behind that, which is pretty much I was working for this trend spotting firm, and I looked several years ahead at which colors were going to be fashionable, and I picked them to create my logo because I thought it's going to take a few years to get it popping. And funnily enough, 3 years later, Jay-Z, I don't know if you remember, dropped his album 444, and he had the same sort of color on his album, and I was like, hey, that's kind of cool, right? So maybe, you know, being able to predict the future, or trying to, is a worthwhile thing. And then on the other side of the slide, I just mentioned how in 2016 I was basically encouraging people working in advertising and branding to spend more time studying hip hop, not just to use rappers for adverts to sell more trainers and burgers, but just to look at the creative approach as to how they approach doing business and collaborating and competing. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that kind of, you know, studying rappers and studying Jay-Z. I'm not saying that he was influenced by me, but I love the coincidence. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about study, right? That if you get really passionate and immersed into something, then you become connected to that thing, and you can start to see things perhaps that other people can't. So as we're building those skills, I mentioned that business leaders of the future are going to have to improve their video game, basically. I think vlogging is going to become more important. And as we're doing now, online streaming. I mean, ordinarily, I'd be seeing you live in the flesh, but we can't do that right now. So we've had to learn new skills, whether that's getting a neon sign, getting a mic, but really getting hype about those things. And I've really tried hard to try and develop those. And so what I do for my students as well is I do encourage them as part of the course to vlog instead of just doing in-class presentations. So if I show you some images, here's one where you can see one of my old students interviewing people out in London, getting their opinion on Dove's advertising, and at the same time collecting information, doing questionnaires and surveys, using an iPad and building that into the vlog. But at the same time, here's another vlog that one of my students put out, or two of my students, and they decided that it might be quite cool to vlog in their home country of Bulgaria. So they did some of their vlogging in one of the holiday breaks when it was snowing, and it made for a really interesting vlog. But you could check those on my YouTube channel. I've uploaded them. So if you're curious, you'll see a few of them there, just to see the personality of the kind of the students that I've been rolling with over the years. So pretty much to round things up, what I would say is, if you want to remember anything about this presentation, remember two things, right? Number one, really think about how you could build your image, identity, personality, and reputation, and branding could be the thing that could help you do that. And the second point is, and the advice that I always give to my students, which is if you're applying for a job, think about the fact that the person interviewing is probably looking at you, not just at your qualifications, not just at your CV, but thinking, could I spend 40 hours a week with you? Meaning that when you go to work, you're going to be working with people. And a big component of that is them thinking, would you be a good person to hang out with, to work with? Are you going to, cause me difficulties? Or are we going to energize each other? Are we going to remain entertained? Those things are really important. And so I think don't underestimate the importance of working on just how to be a good friend and a good colleague, right? That 40-hour-a-week rule. But also that's my advice that I would give to those people that are interested in doing stuff on social media. So if you want to post as many posts as you want, it doesn't matter how many posts you post if people like what it is that you do. And to me, that's the 40-hour-a-week rule as well. So to kind of round up, I'm basically saying, build your brand, right? And that allows you to consolidate all of those beautiful things about you, those qualifications, those experiences, where you're from, where you want to be, who you hang around with, into one tight package. And it allows you to communicate those things, but also celebrate them with other people and elevate your status. And that's kind of all I wanted to say with my little taster. Can't give you any more, otherwise you won't come, right? So does anyone have any questions?
We do have some in the chat, I think.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much, Professor. That was really helpful and quite an interactive presentation. So I can see some questions popping in the chat, but we've got quite an interesting mix of students today from all over the world. So we've got someone here from Pakistan, we've got someone from South Africa as well, and from Romania. So yeah, if you've got any questions, this is a good time to just pop it in the chat and let us know. So there's students who want to study quite a range of different subject areas as well. Would you be able to?
I can do my best, and anything that I can't answer, then we can pick up and we can drop you an email, or I can get a colleague who's better placed to do that. But I'm going to do my best. But let's shout out all of those countries, right?
Yeah, we've got someone from Nigeria as well who wants to study political science.
Come. Come. I mean, one of the things that I'd like to say as well is that London is a cool place to study in because we're connected. And I know that you were also in some really cool countries, but I always remind myself of the fact that, you're only a couple of hours away from Paris by train, or you could go to Milan or Rome. You're like about 4 hours away from Russia, Istanbul, about 6-7 hours away from Dubai, about 6-7 hours away from New York. So it's not just the fact that you're on campus, but you're going to have opportunity to travel in the holidays, I would imagine, right? So save up a little bit of money. But also London as a city is cosmopolitan. And so it's not just on campus, but let's say you come from Nigeria and you get homesick and you're pining for jollof rice. You ain't going to have to worry one little bit. There's a ton of places. You're from Turkey and you miss lahmacun. We got lahmacun coming out of our neighborhoods, fresh. And I think that it's interesting then that if you think about studying international business or political science, whatever your subjects, that you see how communities interact and what that means in terms of developing that global mindset. And I also think that it's kind of helpful because on one level, if you want to leave your country and come to the UK, it's exciting. Don't get me wrong, it's completely exciting. But every now and again, you're going to feel probably a little bit homesick or missing the comforts that you're used to. And that's what I like about London, because originally I was born in Manchester, right? So if you don't know much geography of the UK, Manchester's in the north of England. We can have two pretty cool football teams, right? But I moved to London in 1998 when I graduated from uni. And London has kept me here because there are so many different areas where you have these pockets of culture, so that actually, you can experience so many things. And yeah, I'm grateful for the friends that I've got from all over the world. That bit's cool. Now, some questions. I'm looking at some questions in the chat. Does the university offer data science as a degree or as a module? The other question was, Rebecca was saying, can you tell us about scholarships? I don't know if I can afford the university and accommodation. We can get back to you and see what's available at the minute. I'm not sure how many or what it is that we have. Rebecca wants to study journalism in the UK. Yeah, we have courses in journalism and also multimedia courses, so that you could, for example, take a liberal studies degree that would allow you to have a specialism in journalism, but also you could take other connected subjects, right? But yeah, London's a cool place because even if you're doing projects and wanting to practice your skills, you're going to see a lot of people. And I know that myself and colleagues are connected to a number of journalists, so we can always kind of, help you out there. Can I tell, someone else is asking about an advanced refund policy. I'm going to leave that to recruitment to answer that question. I'm the boring guy that answers questions about studying and academic stuff. Dentistry, I'm really sorry, we don't do dentistry at Regents. But there are plenty of universities that do. Any other questions?
We might have one or two questions coming in from YouTube as well. So we've got one that's asking about whether the student will need to do an interview in order to enroll into Regents.
No, normally what we have is students submit an application form and a personal statement and transcripts, and we can make a decision online. If we did want to talk and gather further information, then we can always do that. But as a policy, we don't require an interview. It's also worth saying as well for individuals who want to put forward a very strong case, we are able to make accommodations. So let's say, there've been one or two situations where somebody had a kind of hiccup when it came to some of their exam marks, but they had good references from their tutors, and they were able to talk about some of the work experience that they have. Then we are able to make some allowances in special cases.
What do you think a student could do to kind of make their application stand out amongst other students?
Okay, I can tell you what not to do, right? So over the years, I've had people apply to my university and put someone else's university, or they've spoken about a course that we don't offer, or I think also application statements that are too generic. So if you're just saying, I'm passionate and I have an attention to detail and I can work with others or alone, That's what everybody says, and that's what everyone says probably in a lot of job applications. So I think there's nothing wrong with sharing something which is personal, which gives us an understanding as to why, effectively, why do you want to come to Regents and study in London? Why this course? And why should, why should we pick you, or why should we make you an offer? So I think it's a two-way street. I think on one level, of course, you want to, you want to sell your benefits, and I'm here trying to sell the benefits of coming to Regents, and that's a dialogue. But I think that some personal information is always important, and that doesn't necessarily have to be work experience that you may or may not have, right? It could be something like, I remember when I was applying for university saying that I played sport, right? I played rugby at a very competitive level, and I spoke about how, playing rugby and training 7 days a week gave me, a disciplined approach to tackling issues, no pun intended, tackling, right? But also teamwork and dealing with losing and bouncing back. And I was able to use sport then as that vehicle to explain some of the skills that I had. But also, put in some of your career aspirations. I mean, you might change your mind. No one's going to come back to your letter and go, it says here in this letter that you wanted to be a political scientist, and now you say you were working in advertising? What's going on? We're not going to say that, but it would be interesting just to have an indicator as to what it is that you'd like to do with your qualification, and why you want to come to Regents. What is it that you saw in our university and our programs that got you interested?
We've got a follow-up comment from Rebecca on what you said. She's asking, would it be okay if we talked about a person that inspired us, like a role model?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And they don't necessarily have to be, I would say key to your subject discipline, right? So it's not that if you're coming to study international business, one of the degrees that I'm responsible for, that you have to think of Sir Richard Branson or Bill Gates or somebody like that, right? You could be inspired by anybody. Could be an historical character, could be somebody, celebrity, whatever. I think the important thing is that when I'm reading the application, I'm looking for your ability to demonstrate your own critical and reflective thinking. It also gets to demonstrate your language skills, how you articulate concepts and explain things. So it's not just the person, but it's also just your approach to doing that. And I think that's really important.
I was just wondering, what is like an average classroom size at Regents Uni?
Okay, so we have a classroom size where when it comes to seminars, it will be up to 25. And there are some courses where what we will do is we will have a lecture, and that could be, like, for example, with branding, I have 90 students taking the branding course, and so I will give them one lecture altogether in a lecture theatre. But then we have individual sessions where we're spending a few hours together, where the class is broken up into kind of groups of 25. But what I will say is, even when it's 90 students, I can make my way around 90 students, right? I used to be a professional musician, so I'm used to performing in front of larger crowds. So even when it gets up to 90, I can recognize you in the corridor. So I remember there was one situation where I'm walking to lecture and someone's walking the other direction. I was like, your class is that way, right? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to put some money in the parking meter for my car. Like, okay, well, we'll come back. Yeah. So don't worry. I think one of the things that Regents does is it focuses on the small classroom experience, so that we can kind of get to know each other and have meaningful conversations.
I was also wondering, so like with branding and things, if a student comes across a career opportunity or is looking for one whilst they're a student at the university, is there like a career support center? Would you be able to kind of advise and support them in any way?
Yeah, we do. We have a careers hive where we can allocate you mentors and help you out with some of those technical things. Or of course, myself and my colleagues, if you have a business idea, you can run it by us and we'll do what we can to help you. And some of my students have gone on to start some really interesting brands, some in fashion, some developing apps. So yeah, we do have success stories of students who have gone on from studying branding or other business subjects, and we've kept involved. It's something that we pride ourselves on. It's what makes me kind of get out of bed every day when it comes to doing my job, right? There's nothing better than teaching somebody and then learning and applying it and doing it in a new way, and basically creating an even better business. And to be honest, from my perspective, if I can teach somebody and they become more successful and make more money than me, then to me that's a good indicator of being a good teacher, because it means that there's a multiplier effect. You know, if I'm teaching you and and you can't be, you know, as successful or make any more money than me, then I'll be a little bit upset. It might take you a few years to develop those skills, but at least we start that journey. I think that's really special.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that answer. We've got some technical questions that I can see Kate's taking care of, things like entry requirements and IELTS exams. And there's another question about requirements of scores for logistics. So yeah, we'll try and answer them in the chat session.
Okay.
But I was just wondering, in terms of in diversity, I know you mentioned that in your presentation as well.
Yeah.
What's kind of the pool, like where are the students mostly from? How many British students have you got on campus?
So we're really international. That's what I would say that, you know, this, everyone that comes to study with us has a good command of English. But I would say that students from the UK are in the minority. It's majority international students, and they could have studied at international schools. I mean, off the top of my head right now, if I think about the students that I'm currently teaching, let's start from Asia: Japan, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Pakistan, India, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Italy, Spain, Germany, Netherlands, Nigeria, Cameroon, Senegal, Colombia, United States of America, England, and I would have missed out some countries along the way, but Israel, bunch of places, and I think that's the exciting thing, because when I was at university, and I went to university in Scotland, we didn't have those discussions, because most people were from the UK. There were very few international students, but because there are so many, and we encourage people to share their experiences of what things are like in their country, I think that that's a really fascinating thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you also mentioned some of the really interesting projects you worked on during your time there. So I was wondering, do you ever get students to kind of support you on any of those external projects, or can they get involved or suggest something in any way?
If they want to, I do my best. So, you know, one of the things that I like to engage students with is, you know, for example, when I was working on a tourism project and you're trying to target different age groups or different populations, I'm going to ask questions of my class and basically say, okay, what music are you listening to at the minute? So I remember us like sharing Spotify mixtapes and stuff like that, because I'm saying, okay, so, you know, let's say, you know, what are young people in Egypt listening to at the minute? Or what's the hottest trap that you're listening to? Or, you know, who likes drill and who likes grime? And the reason would be that not just for conversation, but to think about how we can apply that, you know, when it comes to an advertising campaign or for promotional activities. So a lot of the time I am relying upon my students, because I can't be everywhere all of the time reading everything and listening to everything, but I trust their eyes and ears and their instincts as well. And that helps me to stay young, because I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, and helps you stay relevant with them in the classroom, I imagine.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm getting old, but I'm trying as best as I can.
So with the pandemic and things at the moment, what's the university format like? Are students allowed to come in and study, or is there still an option of studying from home?
So what we're looking at now is that, I mean, this is being reviewed as we speak, and it's subject to government guidance. We're finishing off this term, which has been online. So in terms of online education, I've been uploading videos and podcasts and materials that people can do in their own time. And we've had live sessions, and they've been, you know, as I mentioned, I think maximum of 20 people in a session. So we've had conversations, and so I could have 20 people in a session for an hour and a half, and then they submit their coursework online. And as you can see, I've tried to make things as easy as possible and entertaining, whether that's my guitar amp or my neon or jokes and stuff like that. You know, we've tried to make it fun. Now, moving forward, you know, subject to government guidance, then you know, as soon as we're able to go 100% back on campus, then we will do so. But in the interim, whether you can't travel to us or whether you can, then we're going to find a way to make sure that you have, you know, a comparable student experience. So I think that, you know, with a lot of universities, that they're now exploring what that's going to look like, and we're making preparations. So it could very well be the case that if, you know, there aren't travel corridors or people haven't been vaccinated, that we will have to have provision where people can be on campus, but at the same time we can offer out a decent education to people if they're still in their home country.
No, brilliant. Thank you so much. I can't really see any other questions as of this point, but yeah, if anyone's got any final questions for Professor John, do pop them in the chat, because we'll be wrapping up in a few. Is there any final thoughts or takeaways that you want to say from the presentation that you did?
I enjoyed doing it, but it would have been cool to hear more people, you know, sweat my brain, ask me a couple of difficult questions, disagree, have a debate, or just let me know what you're doing. You know, wherever you are in your country, it's always good. Like, you know, if not now, you can find me on the internet, drop me an email or drop me a message and tell me some of the cool things that are happening in your country, brands that you like, songs that you like, you know, advertising campaigns, food. There's a ton of stuff, and I've been sharing some of that on LinkedIn this week as well. So I would love to hear from you. But even better, come to Regents. Then we can spend like more time doing this day after day after day.
Oh, brilliant. We're really selling the university well here.
I have to. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point? What's the point in living? You know, but seriously, yeah, I have to say, look, if I give you my perspective, I like my job because I get to meet people from all over the world, and that makes me feel connected and just helps me to understand what's going on and why we're all here and why humans are humans. And it's those things that interest me. So, you know, my original degree, I came from a science background, but I've studied science and I studied humanities and business, and I like bringing those things together. I love traveling and I love culture. And so the opportunity to learn new things, and myself, I have to learn new things to keep up to speed with what's going on and to share them with, you know, bright minds, and then to think about how, I mean, and this bit is also important, right? It's not just about learning, but if you want to have a good life, you need a bit of money in your pocket, right? So how to make money and not waste money is an important skill to learn, right? So I can, you know, I'm pleased to be able to say that I can travel to a lot of countries and somebody else is paying for me to go to those countries. And yeah, I have to give a talk at a conference or do a bit of teaching or work with businesses, but I do get to see those countries, and it's so cool. And if you told me, you know, when I was thinking about going to university, so when I was like a teenager, that this is what I'd be doing now, I would have had no idea. I wouldn't have been able to understand what that looks like. But I think that the key things that I've learned that are important, and I think that's what I like to instill in my students, are that you have an open mind, that you find what you're enthusiastic and passionate about, and you fuel that passion. But at the same time, you're aware of what you don't like, but sometimes you might have to do those things. So there are some things that I don't particularly like doing. Like, I talk about making money, but I didn't find studying finance that interesting, but I made sure that I could do it really well, because who wants to go into business and not know how to make money or how to make calculations, right? So, studying things that you don't like is also important, but overall, most important is that critical eye and that creative thinking that allows you to see what's going on and to potentially predict what's going to happen in the future. And then beyond all of that, it's learning how to be a good friend, a good business friend, and a good communicator. Because if you're good at communicating and there's a vibe about you, you're fun and you're passionate, there's always going to be a job for you to do, right? So the last piece of advice I'd give to you, I got from somebody called Patrick Jeffson, who he was Princess Diana's private secretary. So we met at a conference because we were both speaking, and then we were in this bus traveling to another venue. And he said, whatever you do in life, ask yourself kind of three things. Is it worthwhile doing? Does it pay well? And would you like to do it? And he said, if the answer is 2 out of 3 to the thing that you're considering doing, then do it. So whilst I say making money is important, not everything is going to help you to make money, but if it's worthwhile and fun, then do it. And probably eventually it will lead to you making money. And some things make you a lot of money, might be worthwhile, but they're not very fun. Do them still. So I'm going to leave you with that, unless there are any other questions.
It's a really positive note, and we've got some positive feedback as well in the chat box from Rebecca, who's saying she's definitely going to apply.
Yes!
Who said she's inspired by everything that's been said by Professor Wilson. So yeah, really positive feedback from everyone.
That's cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, on that note, I just want to say a big thank you to you. It was a really good session, and I want to say thank you to Kate as well for keeping track of the things happening on chat and answering students. But if you've not had a chance to get your questions answered today, I'm just going to pop a generic email address in the chat box so you can get in touch. And I know Kate's put in the details of Regent's Uni as well, so you can get in touch with SIUK or Regent's Uni, and we'll help you with your application process.
Cool.
Amazing.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, John. Thanks, Kate. Thanks to all the students for joining. I'm going to end this meeting now. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Bye.